We've already introduced the team, and without further ado, Pacer Planners.
Well, thank you, Erica. And I would like to, on behalf of our team, my name is Stephanie Carlisle, and on behalf of our team, I would like to thank our studio professors, the LARP faculty and staff, as well as our client, the City of Chicopee, for all of their guidance and expertise throughout this process. And as was mentioned, our team is a partnership between the third-year MLA students and the second-year MRP students, which include myself, Sammy Gay, Derek Cravat, Ola Smialik, John Paula Holton, Justin Gilmore, Daniel Fontaine, Shul Lee, Melody Tapia, and Ambika Chadha. And together we are Pacer Planning. And I'd like to note that this presentation marks the completion of the LA's part in this project, and the RPs will continue to build up their amazing work throughout the rest of the semester. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce our project called Networks of Opportunity, a citywide vision plan for pedestrian and bicycle pathways in Chicopee, Massachusetts. And now I'll pass it on to my colleague, Sammy.
The City of Chicopee, Massachusetts is located in Hampden County of the state of Massachusetts. It is self-proclaimed as the crossroads of New England. This is due to the two rivers crossing the city, the Connecticut and the Chicopee, and three major highways also dissecting the city. Historically, the city formed as agricultural communities and transitioned to a vibrant manufacturing hub. Villages formed around factory sites within the city, leading to fragmentation of neighborhoods within the city, which leads us to our problem that the city of Chicopee cannot be traversed easily or safely without a motor vehicle. This limits access to schools, limits pedestrian access to schools, open spaces, neighborhoods within the city, and the larger region. And I will pass it off to my colleague, Derek.
So building off of that, because of this problem, our sort of overarching goal for our studio is to create a vision plan for the City of Chicopee, and this vision plan will aim to enhance the connectivity between the city's social and environmental assets, so places like parks, schools, open space. You can see an image here of the Chicopee River, promoting access to these rivers. Again, we want to emphasize that we want to create these connections both locally within Chicopee and regionally to the rest of the larger region. And we want to create these connections for people regardless of their age, race, gender identity, or ability. So within this larger goal to create the vision plan, we've identified several kind of more measurable objectives. The first of which is to increase the number of users of pedestrian and bicycle paths. So we hope that the infrastructural changes that we recommend to connect the city will actually increase the number of people who use these types of sidewalks and bike paths. Secondly, we hope to propose feasible options that will lead to safer routes to school for the city's students. They're a large group that's negatively affected by this lack of connectivity without being able to walk to school. Thirdly, we hope to connect the city's natural, historic, and cultural preserves through a greenway plan that the landscape architecture students have created and will discuss in more depth. Kind of going off that, to also protect the open space, and finally making regional connections between Chicopee and neighboring cities. You can see this image here of the Connecticut Riverwalk in Springfield will be a big part of that. And now I will pass it off to Ola, who will discuss our client directive.
So during the course of the semester, our client, the City of Chicopee, has asked us to complete 4 major tasks that will not only help resolve the problem at hand, but also help us achieve our goals and objectives. The first of which is to determine the sectors within Chicopee, and each sector will be based on a social or physical characteristic that each sector will have in common. A perfect example of that is how how Chicopee is currently divided by the neighborhoods. Our second directive is to identify major sectors within the City of Chicopee, anchors. Anchors are points of interest as well as points of access that we'll have to keep thinking about critically. Our third client objective is to propose major and minor paths to better connect sectors and anchors, while also including a smaller network of paths that will include increased connectivity and accessibility. A comprehensive greenway plan, as well as 4 individual greenway proposals, will also be included within this directive. And our final client directive is to include a public engagement component to provide insight on areas of concern while also allowing the public to have their voice heard. This could include the greater public as well as individual stakeholders. I'll now pass it back to Derek to describe the deliverables in more detail.
So as Willa mentioned, the first kind of phase of our client directive is to identify sectors because this is a city-wide project. We're breaking it down into different sectors to really kind of zero in on where we want to make connections between the city. We've yet to formally identify, slice up the city yet based on sectors, but this is going to be part of our future phase of the project. Again, sectors kind of offer this aerial view of the city to really kind of slice it where we see it. And secondly, creating anchor points. These are areas that we have identified thus far. You can see there are 4 of them. These are major kind of assets that the city has, kind of a concentration of different areas that we want to promote access to. So first you can see we've identified Chicopee Memorial State Park. This is a 575 acre park with a 25 acre pond in it, but only one major access road. So this is going to be a major anchor for us. Secondly, the Bowie Elementary School, which is very close to the Chicopee Academy Alternative Middle and High School, as well as the city's charter school, Science Charter School. So given the cluster of schools in this part of the city, it's another kind of anchor point for us. Thirdly, the Bellamy Middle School. You can see here at Memorial Drive, Route 33, half of the school's service area is across the road from this kind of major road in the city. So we really hope to prioritize this as an anchor to increase access to the school. And finally, the Front Street corridor down here, right along the Chicopee River. This contains the city's public library, as well as 3 schools and City Hall and other city office buildings. So through our vision plan, we're trying to create connections between these anchor points using paths, which Stephanie will discuss.
Thank you, Derek. So this comprehensive map shows the existing conditions of the major pathways in Chicopee. And as you can see, they are highly autocentric. We have the Mass Pike right here, Interstate 391 and 291, as well as routes 116, 141, and Route 33 that dissect the city and act as barriers, limiting accessibility to the region and within the city. There are also the Amtrak runs through the city right here, cutting off access to the river and Willimantic to the Willimantic neighborhood to the larger city. There is 1/8 of a mile of existing bike path, as you can see in this blue line right there. That's the only one they have so far. However, there are proposed designs for pedestrian and bike networks along the Connecticut and the Chicopee River. And the yellow line symbolizes potential areas where the bike paths can connect to the larger region through the Connecticut River Walk, up here and here. And so the only way to traverse these major intersections is through a series of bridges and paths, bridges and underpasses, excuse me. And the green arrows signify accessible bridges, which are defined as they have sidewalks on them. However, simply because there is a sidewalk, as you can see in these images, does not mean that it is either safe or an enjoyable experience for a pedestrian. This slide shows bridges, as shown with the red arrows, that are inaccessible bridges to pedestrians because they are on major interstates. This one shows, the green circles show the underpasses that are accessible to pedestrians and bicyclists. However, just like with the bridges, it may not be safe nor enjoyable for a pedestrian. And finally, these are the inaccessible underpasses for residents. And these existing conditions served as the framework for the LA's development of their Greenway Plan, which we will hear about soon, and the RPs will continue to build off of that throughout the rest of the semester. And now I'll pass it on to John Paula.
Thank you. So in order to best meet the transportation needs of the community, our vision plan will be largely informed by a public engagement component. And for our public engagement component, we decided to focus on school districts within Chicopee for a couple of reasons. First of all, one of our primary objectives is to create safer routes to school for both children and their caretakers. Secondly, the majority of our anchor points, which we just discussed, discuss are schools, and they also turn into public parks after school hours. So they're multifaceted destination points within Chicopee. And lastly, as you can see here, this is a map of Chicopee, and these pink districts here are the places in the neighborhoods that students do not have access to school buses because they're within a certain radius of those schools. So not only do children, their parents, babysitters, not have access to buses here, but they also don't have access to safe routes to get to these schools. So because we can't directly interview the school children for ethical reasons, our method is to conduct semi-structured interviews with key stakeholders related to safe routes to school. So parent-teacher organizations of the 8 elementary schools and 2 middle schools, the principals of all these schools, and also police officers who have to deal with these safety issues on a regular basis. And so our timeline, we've been reaching out to these stakeholders, and we're going to continue to do so until this Friday, October 21st, and then we'll be conducting 20-minute interviews over the phone and in person up until November 10th. And I'll pass it on to Justin.
So I will briefly be discussing some of the demographic information just to sort of give you guys a picture of the type of residents that live in Chicopee, as well as sort of how we went about picking or identifying our stakeholders. So as you can see in this graph, this is a simple age distribution graph. The lower portion of these bars are the younger population, 0 to 24, mid-range, 25 to 54, and 55 and plus years of age. So this is showing a trend line from the 1980s to 2010. As you can see, the middle range population has remained relatively constant. However, we note that currently 40% of Chicopee's population is within the age range of 25 to 54 years of age, signifying to us that there are potentially a lot of family-aged people living in Chicopee who will want safe routes for their children to be able to utilize to get to school and other places throughout the city. It is worthwhile to note that the 1980s, this younger population has slowly been aging and is now in this mid-range to older population group. So that's just something worth noting, as well as the fact that it seems that Chicopee has an overall aging population. We have 26% of the population currently 55 years and older, so that's something that we would have to consider in the development of any pedestrian path or bicycle network making it accessible to older folks. So this is a simple pie graph of the race distribution in Chicopee. As noted here, a large portion of the population is white, 86%. However, within this largely homogeneous population, we have some ethnic diversity. We have folks from Russia and Poland and other parts of Eastern Europe that comprise a good little chunk of the population. We have about just over 12% of residents speak a European language at home. So that's something that we have been considering in our public engagement outreach. Fortunately, we have a Polish speaking group member who will be able to assist with translating certain material. And those are just important folks to reach out to sort of get their input. We want to make sure that language isn't a barrier to reach out to certain stakeholders. And now I will pass it off to Daniel, who will be discussing current land use in Chicopee.
This is a map of existing conditions within Chicopee. The area is comprised mostly of residential use. The second largest area would be open space. And within these areas, there are various industrial and business commercial districts around the area. It's important to note that Chicopee doesn't really have a concrete downtown center, since it originally came from 3 different unincorporated villages. As well in Chicopee, there's also some natural resource areas. The green lines indicate critical critical habitat areas. Most of which are not protected open space. Along the Chicopee and Connecticut River, there are also flood zones And these blue lines here indicate that the area has a reduced flood risk due to levees along the river. I'm now going to hand it off to Shua, who will start out with the first of our plans from the landscape architecture studio.
Based on the site analysis, we proposed the greenway plan for City Chicopee. We proposed the major, mid-level, and minor greenways for the Chicopee. We aimed to connect the cultural, nature, and historical resources and provide recreation use, community, and safe routes to school. This is the major greenway proposal. Following the connected river, the Chicopee River, and connect the Chicopee Memorial State Park, connect the two parts of the city together. The mid-level greenway proposal is a city-wide connector, connect the I-391 and the Chicopee Memorial Drive. The minor greenway proposal is a potential greenway connection. Connect all the small space and the schools. The red star is the anchor points given by our clients. So for the following part, we will base on the anchor points. For our students, we will talk about 4 different topics and focus areas. For my part, I will talk about safe routes to school plan. Based on the greenway proposal connecting 12 public schools in Chicopee. The red area is the school walking roads. In this area, there is no bus service. The students have to walk to school. So we propose that using the existing sidewalks, dirt trails, and also propose the new off-road trails to connect all these 12 schools. My focus area is on Bellamy Middle School. In this area, there has 3 schools, 1 elementary school, 1 middle school, and 1 high school. And we can see the Chicopee Memorial Drive goes through the school service areas. When we zoom into the detailed plan, we can see the solid line is based on the existing sidewalks. The dashed line is new proposed ones, and using the corridors under the power line space at the part of the trails. Also use the existing crosswalks on the Memorial Drive to connect all the school service areas. This is before and after rendering. The first picture shows the existing condition of the Chicopee Memorial Drive. You can see there is no trees and no bike paths and also no human fields. The cars dominate the streets. So we propose to add in more trees, more shrubs, and also the bell routes on the both sides of the street, and identify the sidewalks, the bike paths, and also the traffic is a major issue of this street. So raise up the crosswalk and the traffic island also have the notable size to slow down the traffic. This picture shows the existing condition of the school entrance and also the corridors under the power line space. So we propose to add the bike paths on each side and also identify the sidewalks using existing conditions. Also using the low shrubs and the paved passes under the power line space to identify the trails to the school. Then I will pass to Dan. He will talk about safe routes to work.
This is, my plan was focusing on safe routes to work, working off of Shua's plan for safe routes to school. Since there are a lot of people who travel to various industrial and commercial districts, the key points I indicated with the red dots, it was to connect people so they'd be able to get to work without having to take a car. So part of this plan was working off of using on-road routes such as Memorial Drive and routes going in from Williamson, which is heavily fragmented by the highway as well as topography. So I looked at various ways of connecting on-road routes to the main routes, which were largely open routes, off-road routes going through open space. So my main focus area was on the Memorial Drive area going towards the school complex, which is made up of the Bowie Memorial Elementary School, the Chicopee Academy at Seltzer School, the Hampshire Charter School of Science, the Hamden, Charter School of Science, and the Childhood Development Center. As well as in this area, there's the Fairview Shopping Center and a major commercial district. So I looked at ways of connecting people with the sidewalk area so they'd be able to have a better experience riding to work or going shopping. So I made a rendering of the area of the Rotary, which is which connects Memorial Drive to James Street, which is a difficult area to cross and would be like applicable to different crosswalks. So I looked at making a raised crosswalk with plantings in the middle where people would be able to cross more safely, as well as to the on-road bike paths, and also looked at ways of putting like curb cuts in order to bring stormwater off the street. I will now hand it off to Melody to talk about the connecting recreation resources.
So one of our third objectives was also connecting recreational resources. And in this map, as you can see, we have the major paths that is connecting most of the parks within, or all of the parks within Chicopee. This is the main path, and then the parks are highlighted in green. And we also have to connect the boat access to the Greenway plan, and also propose 2 more on the Connecticut River where there is low land, and it's accessible for boats also to connect, and also on the Chicopee River with these 2 boats on the side. I will now speak about the one of the anchor points that we have for our studio, which is the Chicopee Memorial State Park. Here's the plan of Chicopee State Park, and as you can see here, this is the main entrance currently the only entrance to the Chicopee State Park, and it's on a really busy road called Burnett Road. And once you enter, there is an actual trail system that goes around Chicopee, which is the thicker green line. And if you go on to see these smaller, thinner lines, those are actual dirt trails that are existing there. So this is a really awesome place for people to come and have fun, enjoy the nature, and enjoy the beach during the summer season. So it's a really hot spot in the area. What I propose to is also to have more entrances so that people in the housing in commercial areas can also get to Chicopee in an easier, faster way, instead of going all the way around because it's intruded by 291. So the first is on a private area, which is highlighted by all the reds that you see here. But this would be something for the city to talk about, so we can build access for people to get to the park. And this is the second one, which is highlighted in green. And see, these are some of the pictures of an entrance that is here, and also of the reservoir and the paved dirt trails and the wood trails. So there's a lot of potential to this. We just have to get people to it. And the next part, I'm going to show you 2 renderings that are showing the main entrance of Chicopee State Park and how we could influence this to be a better place for people to get to. And what I created is having a side bike trail system so that the bicycles that come from the east and from the west can just pull in, and instead of driving through the main corridor for cars, they will go on the side and drive in. And this is a proposed the second proposed entrance on the south side of the park, which is using the power lines to also have access to the park. And I've created a road that will go onto the river and then have onto the land, and then have a good path so people can have easier access. And now I'm going to have it to Amika, who's going to talk about our last and objective.
So one of my plans focused on the schools, community connection and recreation areas. One of the goals of the studio was to look at the historical, cultural and natural resources and where all these converge. You can see here in this map that many small but not less important areas that fall in each neighborhood. The bright red corridors are the corridors of unique experiences of natural and cultural resources, and the brown area highlighted here is the historical district of the city of Chicopee, and the bright green dots are the points of interest of the greenway. And you can see that a lot of these green dots converge and they fall near the Chicopee center, and we are going to study this area more closely, as this is one of the anchor points. The Front Street corridor is one of the anchor points given by our client. So when we look at the plan more closely, we can see that, and when we visited the site, we saw that there was lack of walkability. People found it difficult to cross the road. There was lack of connectivity because the Chicopee River runs parallel to the Front Street, as you can see here, but people cannot access it. So what we propose is, there are already connections that are here. The white line is the connection, the canal walkway that's already there. The dotted white line is the proposed connection by the city, and the green dotted line is the greenway that our studio has developed. So, with some of the design elements that we need to bring in this area are more crosswalks, raised ones, and more stoplights. We also want to plant more trees, because trees have the capacity to, they have the unique character of slowing down the movement of cars. They also provide shade to the pedestrian. They also bring a human scale, which we can see there's lack of human scale in the street. It is also very critical to see this corridor, because three major schools are on the Front Street, and we want to make sure that the students are able to cross the streets and reach their home safely. Here we are going to discuss the plan more, on a detailed plan. So on the Front Street corridor, which is the major corridor, we want to introduce 2 bike lanes on both sides of the road. We want to retain the sidewalks, and we want to reduce the on-street parking from both sides to just one side. And of course, we are planting more trees. As I said, this is the before and after of how planting more trees. One of the important things is to have more signages, making people aware of the historical cultural resources with the signages. And the second corridor, the second connection is the tertiary connection, bringing people to the river. And here we want to, since this is a slow traffic road, we want to reduce it from two-way lane to one-way lane. We want to introduce 2 bike lanes. We want to retain the sidewalk over here, but we want to introduce another sidewalk. So you can see the before and after, how it looks having a bike lanes and having the sidewalk. And now I'm going to pass it on to Melody again, who's going to talk about the phases of Greenway.
Great, thank you. In order to develop this Greenway plan, we had the client ask us to develop phases. So as you can see here, we have all the phases combined together, and I'm going to go into detail to each one of them and what they entail. So in the first phase, it involves including signatures and painting bike paths and having tactical urbanism. And what that means is having temporary bike trails and plantings and biking events, which will make people more used to having these biking trails around Chicopee. On the second phase is having street tree planting and complete street and road diets. A complete street just means having bicycle, pedestrian, and car access to the road. And also having improvements to existing bridges and underpasses. And on our last page is actually building new infrastructure, which will be involving new bridges and other infrastructures like boardwalks and so forth. And I'm going to have it to Sammy, so she will have a presentation.
Thus far, PACER planning has relied on various sources of information to provide the framework for our report. This includes previous plans developed in Chicopee by our department and the city itself, insight from our brilliant LARP department, other toolkits like Rethinking Streets to provide information about complete streets, and key literature that really touches on safe routes to school, bikeability, and vehicle networks. And I will pass it on to John Paula.
All right, so very quickly, moving forward into the second half of our semester, we're going to be further building upon the foundation that the landscape architect students have created. We'll be continuing to do site visits and familiarizing ourselves with this site, working with Mass Bike to enhance and support our bike trails by possibly implementing a bike share program in Chicopee, collecting data and analyzing qualitative and quantitative through our public engagement, precedent studies, and using a GPS tracker application while we walk around Chicopee, interviewing our stakeholders, meeting with the LARP faculty and leveraging their extensive knowledge and resources, and then finally constructing our vision plan for our client, which will include recommendations, short-term, mid-term, and long-term. And thank you for listening to our presentation.
We'll open it up to questions.
Really a superb presentation, very well organized, very well presented, the graphics and visual representation very strong. So I just have a few items of advice to give you thinking ahead for the planners, thinking ahead for the second half of this semester. The Regional Planning Agency, Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, we've got to include them as part of the group and the communication, particularly around the bike share program there in the midst of developing a regional bike strategy. The roadways do not dissect the city. Dissect is what we do to a frog in high school biology, and either bisects or divides. Since you're going to be doing interviews, and this applies to the other planning group as well, talk to faculty who have extensive experience with developing interview protocols to make sure that you're doing it in an ethical, responsible, effective sort of way. The discussion of language was sort of odd and confusing. English is an Indo-European language, so when you talk about Indo-European languages, just basically say households that speak English as their primary language and households that speak a language other than English. Farsi and Hindi and Arabic are also Indo-European languages. So it's just when you're thinking about a pedestrian and bicycle plan, that you've done an excellent job of that. But it's also important where the distances are great to think about intermodality. So people might, there's really no discussion of public transportation at all. So think about where people might walk, take public transportation. I don't know whether there's a rack and roll in terms of ETA service to Chicopee, but those are some thinking about intermodality. It's, I think, a critically important part of this where the distance is greater. I was hoping to see more kind of like GIS spatial analysis overlays where you have the various layers that highlight educational institutions, road network, and then sort of overlay them to provide the analysis. So I think you did it by other means, and that's fine, but I think that's often a very strong, effective way of putting forward a greenway plan. And then I was also expecting to see and didn't see sections, so there were perspective drawings and visualizations of how things could look, but some of them I was wondering whether there's sufficient right-of-way. Like if you're going to make an argument for road diets or putting in sidewalks or bike paths or so on, you've really got to have a section analysis to show that vehicle traffic, and particularly emergency vehicles, are able to so that should be a really important part of it. It's super strong and really big.
Thank you.
I'm melting over here, so I hope it doesn't.
Me too.
I love all you people, so I hope what I say doesn't sound the wrong way. But you have a lot of information, and I think probably too much information at this scale. It was hard for me actually to take in some of your diagrams, and I think they probably were better in a book or with individual presentations, but sitting here looking at them, I don't know if it's the light or just, I think it's more the size really, and all the information you had was it was hard for me to take it all in. And I think what made it more difficult was, even though I think, well, our jobs are all about collaboration, but I got the sense that if people were doing their own thing, and you checked off the boxes, you had the drawings you needed, but I didn't get the sense that you were pulling it all together, and that the landscape people were informing the planners, the landscape people among themselves were informing each other. You individually did really good projects, and that's why in my mind I'm thinking of it as I should have been walking around the room, having you present them and really explain them in detail. But at this scale, from where I'm sitting, it was hard for me to really get into them. So, and I think just even from the beginning, where you presented an overview of Chicopee, and I don't know Chicopee, but I've been there. I didn't really get the sense that you were telling me where the problems were. So you're talking about the lack of connectivity, the fact that there was no downtown. I couldn't really get that from the plan. I couldn't get the trouble spots. You talked about some of them, I'm sure, with major highways and streets and all, but I wish you could have used maybe some of the opening to really present some of the challenges that Chicopee has. So, you know, in general, I was really happy with the amount of information we have, but I think it could have hung together better. And then the other thing was, I didn't hear much about the biker community here, because I'm not really a person that drives a bike a lot, but talking to people that ride bikes, it's a subculture that I don't even understand some of the stuff you're talking about.
You do a studio with Frank, I know about it.
Well, I don't get it. Like, but if you talk to somebody, I'm on the Bike and Pedestrian Committee in Northampton. I really don't even understand half. But you talk to a biker, they know every intersection in that city, which ones are problematic for a bicycle and which ones are that they love just the way they are. And so when you talk about schools, you tell me you couldn't talk to kids, but how many kids have bicycles? How many kids ride to school now? You know, what's the potential? You have demographic information, but you had kind of boilerplate stuff about the people who live in Chicopee. I would have liked to have seen what's the potential? You know, where are the low-income areas, and what are the challenges that some of the communities face in just getting a bicycle, and how does that play into how you prioritize? And I think that's what I'll end with, is that you had a ton of information, you all did lots of work, but at some point, there's you know, they're interrelated, all this stuff, the greenways and the bike paths and the accidents, and so I was hoping maybe at the end you would have pulled that all together. And, you know, all of you, like, really literally, like, overlay all your stuff and say that this is what we've learned at the midterm. You know, these are the advantages and disadvantages. All these landscape people were looking at greenways. These are the points where we can overlap. You know, we can proceed with things that work together, and we have a limited budget, but we can accomplish some of these things, prioritizing things like that. I don't know if I said that was the last thing. One more thing. The citizen participation again. So you've got all this stuff, not just the bikers, but what's going to happen. It sounds like you already have vision for I know you're finished with your work, but where was the input for those plans in the community?
Like all the
The
plans?
Greenway plan.
Like all the greenway plans? Well, those were part of the analysis that we did. Like you mentioned, we did a lot of analysis of GIS and overlapped all the layers, and we did that together. But as a part of the group, we had to kind of choose what to project, and so we consolidated some of it, but we were not able to show all the analysis that we did. But the result of our greenway was from that analysis of different areas of schools, natural resources, recreation area, parks, and communities.
Yeah, and it was also having site analysis, driving over and see what works, what doesn't work, driving around the state park, driving inside. So those
But you
things
don't know the
help.
city the way the residents.
Can I note that
Yeah.
a lot of like the proposed plans along the Connecticut and the Chicopee River there was extensive public engagement for those plans. So that was yes for those previous things. So those are based.
That's good to know.
Yeah. So we use theirs.
Hold up. Team, talk about bikes, please. I didn't hear the bike part. Respond to that.
There is no bike culture in Chicopee. Because it's,
that's wrong.
well, there is a very minimal, there's some people that are they would like it, but in its current state, it's very difficult to traverse the city with a bicycle.
And so what are you guys doing to counter that?
So what are we doing we're reaching out to figure out where we're at.
Working with Mass Bike and
Okay.
PVCP and
I know you mentioned at the end, but I didn't get the mass bike connection to your work.
oh.
Yeah, we're having regular weekly conference calls with the executive director of Mass Bike, Richard Fries, and he's also partnering with the city right now to do an assessment of bicycle conditions, and we're kind of working very closely with him as we continue to incorporate the landscape architect component and continue on with our proposals. So he's going to be kind of like, we're going to be in touch with him every week, about what we're doing.
Yes.
So, I wanted to ask, have you thought about consulting with the PVTA about adding bus stops at the entrances to the walkway so that people could take public transportation and then go for a walk and get to places on foot?
That is something we definitely need to continue working on and bringing that the multimodal transportation back into this plan, absolutely.
I'd like to add, I think that's a great suggestion, and I think that would be an excellent place moving forward. We do know that currently in Chicopee, the PVTA bus system does not currently provide scheduling times for where buses are going to be at different times of the day at certain locations. So that's something on the town's part that is going to have to be remedied to allow for that kind of access. But it's also, for us moving forward, something that we're thinking about doing, riding these buses and doing a GPS tracking app and sort of getting a greater understanding of where these buses make stops and where they go throughout the city. So that's a great suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. So I have a couple, I don't know if there are questions or suggestions, and I'm not exactly sure which group I'm addressing this to.
We're one group.
Which subset of the group I'm addressing this to. So you mentioned that you did a lot of spatial analysis, but one of the things that really struck me when I was looking at this, and maybe this is something that you actually did and just chose not to present. So in which case, if that wasn't the case, then it would be something you might want to think about moving forward. You talk a lot about these kind of nodes as kind of major destinations, and that's fine, but that's really only half of the transportation equation when we're talking about putting in new infrastructure. The other half is actually the origins. And this feeds into the demographic analysis they all did that was really at kind of the town-wide level, where really what is needed is kind of an origin and destination type of analysis. And if you're talking about your target demographic as being school-age children, that's where the spatial distribution by age would have become very, very important and should have conditioned the actual choices of what the master and secondary routes and so on and so forth, just as important as infrastructure and other physical attributes that you might look in. And I found that, it wasn't there, so I'm not sure if you did it. It was just one of the things you chose not to.